Darren had always been glued to his phone. At 19, it wasn't just an accessory. It was his livelihood, his lifeline, and, more than anything, his stage. He wasn't a dancer, not exactly funny enough for skits, and too awkward to try the relationship content that some creators milked for views. What Darren had, though, was an old, creaking house that seemed to breathe at night. It had belonged to his grandparents before his parents inherited it. The house was big by most standards, with 4 bedrooms, a drafty attic, and a basement that nobody liked going into. But despite its size, Darren often felt as if the walls pressed in on him when he was alone. Shadows seemed to linger in corners longer than they should. Lights flickered for no apparent reason. And sometimes, when he recorded late at night, his videos picked up sounds he swore weren't there when he filmed. That was the secret to his channel. He didn't call himself a ghost hunter exactly, but his followers knew him for his late-night lives, where he wandered through the house at 2 or 3 a.m., phone flashlight on, narrating the creaks and groans of the old place. He made jokes, sometimes set up little pranks, and played into the spooky energy that TikTok's algorithm loved. He had just enough charisma to make people stick around, and just enough luck with eerie coincidences that his account had grown into the hundreds of thousands. But what he didn't realize was that sometimes, when you invite attention, you get more than you bargained for. That Friday night, Darren set up like always. He dimmed the living room lights so that the only glow came from a desk lamp in the corner. He adjusted his hoodie, flipped his phone camera on, and hit the Go Live button. The screen filled with usernames trickling in, hearts floating up the side, and comments appearing fast enough that he could barely read them. "Yo, what's up guys?" he said, grinning into the camera. "Back again for another late-night live. Let's see what the house has for us tonight." The comments rolled in instantly. "Closet check. Bro, walk into the kitchen, it's always cursed. Anyone else hear that creak? You look tired AF man," he laughed, brushing his shaggy hair out of his eyes. Yeah, closet, I know. Y'all always obsessed with the closet. Chill." Still, he panned his camera toward the hallway closet behind him. It was barely ajar, just a sliver of darkness between the wooden door and the frame. Darren leaned into the spooky act. "If there's anyone in there," he said dramatically, "make yourself known." The chat went wild with laughing emojis, skulls, and ghost icons. Darren chuckled and moved on, angling his camera toward the kitchen. He knew the routine by now: wander, narrate, keep people hooked. And for the first half hour, it was nothing unusual. A floorboard groaning under his weight, the fridge motor kicking on like a distant growl, and a faint tap-tap sound that was probably just the house settling. But then someone in the comments wrote something that made him pause. "Closet door moved. Rewind." Others echoed it instantly. "Yo FR. It opened wider when you turned. Check the closet, check the closet, check the closet." Darren frowned, replaying the last few seconds of the stream in his mind. He hadn't touched the closet. He had walked away. Slowly, he panned his phone back toward it. The door was open, wider than before. "Okay, that's new," he said, trying to sound amused, though his throat felt dry. "Y'all trolling me?" The comments lit up. "Nah, it moved. Saw it with my own eyes. Someone's in there, bro." Yeah, Darren muttered, creeping closer. He put his hand on the closet knob and yanked it open. Inside were only jackets, boxes stacked at the bottom, and a vacuum leaning against the wall. Empty. "See? Nothing," he said, chuckling nervously. "Good try, though." He turned back toward the camera, relief settling in. But just before he shifted the angle, something flickered at the edge of the frame. Something pale, standing among the shadows of the coats. And the comments exploded. "Did y'all see that? Nah, rewind. Bro, there was a face. Pale figure behind the coats." Darren's smile faltered. His viewers loved to stir him up, but there was a different energy in the chat now. Not playful. Urgent. Terrified. He swallowed hard and forced a laugh. All right, y'all freaking yourselves out. I didn't see anything." But as he shut the closet door, a faint whisper seemed to drift out with the creak of the hinges. So soft it could have been the wind. So quiet he almost didn't catch it. But his viewers did. because the chat froze for a second. Then a flood of identical comments filled the screen. It said your name. Darren woke the next morning, trying to laugh off what he thought was a trick of the light. He replayed last night's TikTok clip, watching the faint shadow slip across the screen, and convinced himself it was nothing more than bad lighting. But the comment section refused to let him brush it aside. Half the viewers swore they could see a figure, others claimed he was faking it, and some went so far as to demand he move out. Trying not to dwell on it, Darren got ready for his day. But something felt off. When he opened his bedroom door, he froze. His phone lay in the hallway, screen cracked, as if it had been dropped from a height. He had gone to bed with it charging on his nightstand. His stomach tightened. He picked it up only to notice faint smudge marks across the glass. Marks that looked too much like long stretched fingers. The rest of the day was no better. The kitchen light flickered every time he stepped into the room, only to stop the moment he left. The bathroom door creaked shut behind him with no draft. The TV in the living room turned on by itself, blasting static at a low, unnerving volume. Darren tried to dismiss it as old wiring and faulty electronics, but unease gnawed at him. He finally filmed the TV switching on by itself and uploaded it with the caption, "Guess my ghost wants screen time." The video exploded overnight. His follower count skyrocketed, comments flooded in, and people stitched his post, dissecting every second. "This is real. Bro, get out of there. The static is a voice trying to come through." Darren told himself it was harmless fun, just entertainment. But deep down, he knew he wasn't staging any of this. That weekend, he went live on TikTok to prove it wasn't a trick. He greeted his viewers and walked through the house, chatting casually. The chat demanded he show them the hallway where the shadow first appeared. Darren turned the camera, panning slowly down the narrow corridor. First, nothing happened. He made a joke about disappointing his ghost fans. Then the door at the far end creaked open. The chat exploded instantly, thousands of comments racing by. "We saw that. Someone's there. Darren, don't go closer." He felt his chest tighten, but he kept the camera steady. The door opened wider, and in the dim light, the shape of a head and shoulders emerged. Still human-like, but darker than the shadows around it. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, facing the camera. Darren's heart pounded in his ears. His voice cracked as he muttered something no one heard. Then the live cut off abruptly. Later, when he rewatched the recording, he wished he hadn't. The figure was real. Too real. It wasn't a blur, not a glitch. It was solid, standing there as if waiting for him to notice. For the first time, Darren regretted uploading any of this. He had wanted followers, not whatever this was. The house seemed heavier now, like it was holding its breath. When he finally lay down to sleep, exhaustion pulled him under. But at exactly 3 a.m., 3 slow knocks rattled his bedroom door. Darren sat up, phone in hand, staring at the door. Silence followed. He whispered, voice trembling, "Who's there?" The doorknob twisted. Then the door opened on its own. The door eased open, inch by inch, its hinges groaning softly in the stillness of the room. Darren's phone trembled in his hand, the faint glow of the screen throwing long, broken shadows across the floor. He wanted to believe it was the house settling, a draft, anything normal. But drafts didn't twist doorknobs, and empty air didn't breathe. Because that's what it sounded like now, slow, uneven breathing, just beyond the doorway. He forced himself to raise his phone toward the hall, streaming the faint light into the darkness. Nothing was there. The hallway stretched out as it always did, empty and still. But Darren could feel it. An unseen weight pressing against the edges of the air, the kind of presence that made every hair on his body rise. He tried to speak, to demand an explanation, but his voice failed him. Instead, he reached forward and shut the door as firmly as he could. He pressed the lock, then pulled the blanket over his body like a child hiding from a nightmare. Minutes passed, maybe an hour. At last, his exhaustion dragged him back to sleep. The next morning, he woke to find the door wide open again. He was sure he had locked it. On the floor just inside the threshold was a single slip of paper, yellowed and curled at the edges, as though it had been there for decades. His chest tightened as he picked it up. Scrawled across it, in handwriting jagged and uncertain, were the words, "Don't film me." Darren nearly dropped the paper. His videos had reached hundreds of thousands of views by now. Entire accounts were popping up dedicated to analyzing his ghost. Some viewers insisted it was a hoax, but the rest claimed it was the most convincing paranormal evidence ever caught on TikTok. Darren thought about deleting everything, shutting it all down, but fear and curiosity kept him glued to the app. That night, against his better judgment, he went live again. He told himself it was to prove he wasn't scared, that he was still in control. Thousands joined instantly, their comments racing across the screen. They begged him to check the hallway again, and despite the chill in his gut, he obeyed. As he stepped into the hall, the air grew colder, heavier. His breath fogged faintly in the glow of his phone light. The chat exploded. "We see it! Behind you!" Darren spun, but the hallway was empty. He took another step, then another, until he reached the end where the shadow had first appeared. That's when the lights in the house went out. The stream plunged into pitch black. Panic seized him as he tapped the screen, trying to see if the live was still running. The faint glow of chat messages confirmed it was. His viewers could still see something even if he couldn't. He heard their frantic words scrolling by. "It's right there. Don't move. Darren, it's in the room with you." His throat tightened. He whispered into the darkness, "What do you want?" There was no reply at first, only the sound of his own breath. Then, faintly, a voice hissed from the static of his phone speaker, warping the live stream audio itself. "Stop showing them." The comments erupted, people screaming in text, some begging him to run, others calling it the scariest thing they had ever witnessed. Darren staggered back toward his bedroom, slamming the door shut, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might burst. When he dared to glance at the screen, the live had ended abruptly, cut off mid-scream from the audience. And yet, in the reflection of his darkened phone screen, he swore he could see a figure standing just behind him. Darren didn't sleep after that night. He couldn't. Every time he shut his eyes, he imagined that reflection. The shadowy figure behind him, staring through the black glass of his phone. His bedroom felt corrupted now, the air thick with something unseen, something waiting. Even with the lights on, every corner seemed darker than it should be. But his notifications wouldn't stop. His phone buzzed non-stop with new followers, comments, people begging for another live stream. He told himself he'd stop, delete everything, walk away before this got worse. Yet each ping of a new subscriber twisted his resolve. Fame had come suddenly, intoxicating, and now it demanded more. By evening, Darren gave in. He set up his phone on its tripod, telling himself this would be the last live. The comments flew in instantly, a crowd far larger than before. Tens of thousands watched as Darren's weary face filled the screen. He confessed he was scared, that something was wrong in his house. His viewers, instead of warning him to stop, urged him on. "Go to the hallway. We want to see it again. Prove it's real." So he did. The moment he stepped into the hallway, his breath frosted the air. The viewers noticed it first, their comments spamming the screen. "Cold breath. This is insane." Darren's hands shook as he lifted the phone toward the end of the corridor. At first, the feed showed nothing but shadows. Then, slowly, something began to emerge from the dark, a silhouette forming piece by piece, like smoke hardening into flesh. The audience erupted. Thousands of comments flooded the screen. Darren's heart hammered as he realized the figure wasn't just standing. It was moving. Each step it took made the walls groan, the ceiling tremble, the light fixtures rattle in their sockets. And then the live feed began to lag, glitching violently. The chat box flickered, frames skipping. Viewers wrote that the figure's face was too distorted, stretched like melted wax, its eyes nothing but hollow pits. Darren could barely look, but his audience wouldn't let him stop. He stumbled backward, his phone light trembling across the warped figure. It didn't move like a person. Its joints bent wrong, its shoulders shuddering as though it were unfolding from a cramped space it had never left. Every step sounded like bones grinding together. The viewers spammed, "Don't run. Let it come closer. Stay live." But Darren couldn't. He bolted for his room, slamming the door shut. The phone flew from his hands and clattered across the floor. The live ended abruptly again, leaving only silence. He crawled toward the device, his hands trembling as he picked it up. The screen had gone black, but etched faintly across it, as if burned into the pixels, were 3 words he hadn't typed, hadn't seen before. "They want me." Darren's chest tightened. Who was they? His audience? His followers? Or something else entirely? The apartment felt impossibly silent now, and in that silence, Darren realized something chilling. He wasn't breathing alone anymore. The next morning, Darren awoke to the sound of his phone buzzing uncontrollably on the nightstand. He hadn't even remembered falling asleep, though his body felt bruised, heavy, like he had run a marathon in his dreams. Blinking blearily at the glowing screen, he saw that his follower count had doubled overnight. Millions of views, thousands of new subscribers. People online were calling him the guy with the ghost. But something was wrong. The comments under his videos weren't just excitement, they were obsession. "Go live again, we need to see it. Don't stop now. This is history. Let it show itself. Give it what it wants." His hands shook as he scrolled. It wasn't just strangers anymore. Big-name TikTokers, YouTubers, even journalists had started talking about him, dissecting every frame of his last live. And scattered through the frenzy were strange, cryptic messages that chilled Darren more than the ghost itself. "You've opened the door. Don't close it now. We've been waiting for someone like you. Keep feeding it. The more who watch, the stronger it becomes." Darren dropped the phone, his stomach nodding. Feeding it. The thought gnawed at him as he paced the room. Was that why it had appeared during the live streams? Why it grew clearer, more solid with each broadcast? He remembered the hallway, the way the figure had stepped closer, more defined than before. The way the lagging feed seemed almost alive, as if the ghost itself was crawling through the network, touching thousands of screens at once. His audience hadn't been spectators. They had been participants. By evening, Darren's phone buzzed again. A notification. One he hadn't seen before. Live scheduled, 11 p.m. He froze. He hadn't scheduled anything. But the event was already created, his profile picture plastered beside the time. Thousands of people had RSVP'd. The comments beneath the announcement flooded with anticipation. His throat tightened. He didn't want to go live. But when he tried to cancel it, the button didn't work. The option to delete was gone. His phone wouldn't even shut off. The screen flickered violently whenever he tried. It was as if something else had control now. As the clock crept toward 11, the air in his apartment shifted. The temperature plummeted, his breath rising in pale clouds. The lights dimmed, buzzing with a sickly hum. Darren sat on the edge of his bed, clutching the phone in both hands, staring at the countdown ticking on the screen. And when the timer struck 0, the stream began, without him pressing a single button. The chat exploded instantly. Tens of thousands tuned in, their excitement manic, desperate. Darren tried to speak, but his voice cracked, words failing as the camera panned by itself, slowly turning away from his face and toward the dark hallway. He wasn't holding it. The phone hovered in the air, steady as if mounted on an invisible rig, gliding forward into the corridor. The viewers went wild, their comments a blur of emojis, screams, and commands. And then it came. The figure was waiting at the far end. Not smoke, not shadow, solid now. Tall, its limbs grotesquely long, its head tilted unnaturally to one side. Its face still stretched, features warped, but its eyes were no longer hollow. They glowed faintly, reflecting the phone's light like an animal's. The audience's frenzy only grew. Thousands typing, "Closer! We want to see! Don't stop now!" And Darren understood. They weren't afraid anymore. They weren't horrified. They were hungry. Hungry for the terror, the spectacle. The more they craved it, the stronger the thing became. His viewers weren't his supporters. They were the ghost's worshippers. And Darren was just the vessel. The camera glided forward on its own, as though invisible hands were carrying it. Darren stumbled back, pressed against the wall, his chest heaving with shallow breaths. He wanted to scream at the audience, to beg them to stop watching, to leave. But the stream had its own momentum, its own will. The thing at the end of the hallway began to move. Each step echoed unnaturally, stretching longer than the space allowed. Its legs bent too far at the joints, its limbs bending like wet branches. The glow of its eyes pulsed in rhythm with the scrolling flood of comments, as though the chat itself was feeding it, syncing with its heartbeat. And then it happened. The lights flickered. His apartment dissolved into static for a split second, the walls warping, tearing at the edges like a corrupted video file. Darren blinked hard, but when the feed steadied, the thing was no longer just in the hallway. It was on the screen too. The live stream split in two, half showing his apartment, half showing something else. A dark void filled with countless faces, pixelated and half-formed, all watching from within the digital ether. The ghost wasn't limited to his space anymore. It had found its way into the network itself. The chat exploded with reactions. "It's in my room. Bro, I swear it just looked at me. It's coming through my phone. I can't stop watching. Help." The audience wasn't just seeing it. They were feeling it. Some begged Darren to shut it down, but others screamed for more, typing in frantic capital letters, demanding the ghost appear clearer, demanding it speak, demanding it touch them. The figure turned its head, slowly, deliberately, not at Darren, but at the phone, at the millions watching beyond the glass. Its mouth opened, a jagged rip of darkness, and though no words formed, sound poured out. A low, crushing hum that rattled the floorboards, shook the air, and carried through the live stream like an earthquake of static. Darren clutched his ears, but the noise wasn't just sound. It was inside him, scraping his thoughts raw. His nose bled, his vision blurred. Through the blur of tears and pain, he saw his viewer count spike higher. 1 million, then 2, then 3. Notifications flashed relentlessly as people around the world tuned in, drawn like moths to flame. And that's when Darren realized the awful truth. This wasn't his haunting anymore. It wasn't his story. He had become nothing more than a doorway. Every new pair of eyes was another invitation, another open window. The ghost didn't need his apartment, his camera, or even him. It had the world. The entity stepped closer, filling the frame entirely. Its glowing eyes seared into the lens, into every screen, staring at millions of viewers at once. The chat slowed as people stopped typing, hypnotized, caught in its gaze. And Darren, helpless in the corner, whispered hoarsely, his voice breaking, "It's not after me anymore. It's after you." The stream cut to black, but the sound, the low, static hum, lingered in every phone, every tablet, every computer that had tuned in. And for those unlucky enough to keep watching, their screens flickered, and something in the shadows of their own rooms shifted. The silence after the stream ended should have been a relief, but it wasn't. Across bedrooms, basements, buses, and late-night kitchens around the world, the glow of 1 million phones hung in the dark like open mouths. The static hum never really stopped. It clung to the edges of the audio, a faint vibration under every ringtone, every notification ping, every silence between words. At first, viewers thought it was a glitch, a strange aftereffect of Darren's chaotic livestream. But then the shadows began to move. A girl in Brazil swore she saw something standing at the corner of her bedroom mirror, its reflection grinning when she wasn't. A boy in Germany recorded his phone screen flickering with the same glowing eyes Darren had shown, and the footage refused to delete. Every time he erased it, it reappeared in his gallery, multiplied, filling the memory until his phone overheated. In Japan, a group of teenagers live-streamed themselves re-watching the clip, laughing nervously, until halfway through one of them stopped laughing, went pale and whispered, "It's right behind us." The chat logs became endless testimonies. Anyone else hearing it whisper their name? Mine won't turn off. My phone just keeps playing the hum. Help, I can see its eyes in the glass of my TV. It smiled at me. Some thought it was just viral hysteria. But hospitals began reporting patients who wouldn't stop staring at their devices. Their eyes glazed, pupils blown wide. Entire families sat rigid in their living rooms, phones clutched tightly in their hands, humming softly along with the static. The algorithm, blind to the horror, did what algorithms do best. It amplified. Clips of Darren's final words, "It's after you," were spliced into remixes, duets, and reaction videos. The ghost silhouette appeared as filters, distortions, even fan art. People joked about it, trying to turn fear into content. But the more it spread, the stronger it became. In some cities, power outages were traced back to unexplained surges. Buildings flickering like Darren's apartment had. Security cameras picked up figures wandering hallways at night, their limbs wrong, their movements skipping like broken video frames. And through it all, no one heard from Darren again. But occasionally, just occasionally, a fresh live stream would appear under his account. No title, no notifications, just an empty black feed. If you clicked it, you might see the outline of a room, or the faint sound of breathing, or, if you were unlucky, the reflection of your own face staring back at you from the other side of the glass. By then, people weren't asking if the ghost was real anymore. The only question was how long it would take before the whole world was watching. And when everyone was watching, what would it do then? By now, TikTok wasn't just an app, it was an infection. Every phone carried the hum. Every clip held the shadows. Every swipe brought the ghost closer. People whispered that even if you deleted the app, it came back. Some said their devices powered themselves on at night, cameras activating, recording empty rooms until the faint outline of someone else appeared in the frame. Entire communities began treating TikTok like a cursed object. Online forums warned users not to scroll past midnight. Some swore the ghost was strongest then, slipping through the feed when the world was asleep. Others said you could protect yourself by never watching a full video, by breaking the rhythm, closing your phone before the ending. But no one could prove it worked because those who failed to do so simply stopped posting altogether. The company denied everything, of course. They blamed filters gone wrong and malicious edits. But inside their offices, employees whispered of servers that crashed with no explanation, of corrupted code that rewrote itself, of streams they couldn't shut down no matter what kill switch they pulled. They weren't running TikTok anymore, the ghost was. And it wasn't just content anymore. It was present. In New York, subway passengers reported seeing a figure flickering in the glass of the train, moving with the rhythm of scrolling thumbs. In London, a girl screamed when she saw her For You page showing live footage of her bedroom, while she was still lying in bed. In Karachi, a boy's phone screen melted into a black mirror, where the ghost's grin spread wider and wider until his device shattered in his hands. The final straw came when Darren's account, thought long abandoned, suddenly went live again. Millions tuned in. There was no thumbnail, no description, no sound at first, only the black feed. Then, slowly, a figure leaned into view. Not Darren. Taller. Wrong. Its face blurred, shifting, as though trying on features stolen from the watchers themselves. And then it spoke. Not in words. Not in any human voice, but in the chorus of a million notifications ringing at once. Every phone that was tuned in, every phone in pockets, on nightstands, charging by bedsides, buzzed and lit up. The sound was deafening, an unholy harmony of alerts. And then, in unison, every screen displayed the same thing, the viewers. Their own faces, live, staring back at them from the other side of the screen. Only this time, their reflections smiled first. That was the night the world learned the ghost wasn't just in TikTok. It was TikTok, Every scroll, every swipe, every glance was fuel.